time. I, I thought she said she'd come back from Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. She said, "Oh, I just come back from Riyadh." And it turned out afterwards she was saying she came back from rehab. So, hi, hello, welcome to the Jib. This bi-weekly podcast is about the many varied schemes of many and varied U.S. law enforcement and intelligence agencies, organizations, and committees, and how they are stupid and funny. Join us on our merry journey through space and time. Hi, my name is Barry, and you might recognize me as the guy who skipped the queue in your local Starbucks and then spent 12 minutes staring at the board and mumbling.
Okay, then. I am Seamus, and I am the guy that motherfucked Barry for about 5 minutes before the start of the show. So, yeah.
How did you do that exactly?
Well, because somebody always sends me last minute shit to throw in to put together for a slideshow, and then he belittles me the whole fucking episode while we're doing it.
That's true.
So,
that is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I expect Seamus to get it together. I expect Seamus to get stuff together very much at the last minute. That was about a few hours ago. I gave you two new photos.
Yeah.
Nothing completely
and videos.
Yeah. But I gave him these photos separate from the main photo group, and I said, "Here, by the way, throw in these two photos." Mm-hmm. And then throughout every episode, every so often, I'll be like, "I won't say it directly, but you pick up my tone. I'll be Seamus. You had one job." So that's fair. That's completely fair. Yeah. But we're not here to discuss Seamus's incompetence at podcast.
Motherfucker.
We're not here to discuss that. This podcast would be nothing. If Seamus ever decided to stop doing this podcast, I would not have the know-how to do it myself. All I can do is talk straight to camera. Anyway, we're not here to discuss that. We're here to discuss Venezuela. If you were here the last time, we discussed everything from Venezuela from about 1492 to, say, 1914. And the reason we picked 1914 is...
Oh, was I supposed to be paying attention? Oh, they found oil. That's what it was.
They discovered oil, exactly, which is now we have a different Venezuela, and we're going to discuss what happened there. This is also...
So Paul Thomas Anderson movie?
Something like that, but instead of Texas, it's Venezuela. It's not too far off that. They're drinking each other's milkshakes and blah-de-blah, right? Yes. This is also the longest script I've ever written, so strap in, I guess. What did it say? Buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy night, is it?
Yeah.
Right. So here we go. In the last episode, we spoke about Venezuela's move away from direct Spanish colonialism and to the more subtle form of American colonialism. And we stopped in 1914 when a massive oil field was discovered in the Maracaibo Basin, which is not... The Maracaibo Basin is not that orange thing. It's a brown thing. It's the blue bit top left with the green kind of bits in it. That's the Maracaibo Basin. So it'll let you know exactly how much oil is in Venezuela if they were getting all excited about that tiny thing, right? The history of Venezuela since 1914 might as well be the history of Venezuelan oil, which is why I call these episodes Operation Oil. This is not an official CIA operation name or anything close to it. There is no official CIA operational name for what they did in Venezuela, so I made up Operation Oil. You might be thinking that Operation Oil would be a better name for CIA shenanigans in the Middle East, but Venezuela has the world's largest proven oil reserves at an estimated 304 billion barrels, 18% of the global reserves, as of 2020. This out-oils anywhere in the Middle East by a long margin. In other words, as oil production slacks off in some parts of the world, you will see a greater level of political unrest and CIA meddling in the affairs of Venezuela. Anyway, between writing the first part of this and the second, the Trump administration gifted me with a real-life operation name, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Yes, we will.
Seamus knows about this because Seamus sent me something before I ever mentioned this. Seamus sent me, here's the thing about the operation name.
Operations.
Yeah, operations. The political situation we left in the last episode was the friendly takeover by Cipriano Castro's best friend, Juan Vicente Gomez, as soon as Castro was outside Venezuelan airspace. Gomez stays in power until 1935. Although a big oil field was discovered in 1914, everyone's energy was directed towards World War I, so it wasn't until the end of the war that Venezuela started producing oil. In 1918, the first Venezuelan oil exports registered at around 350,000 barrels. In 1928, it was the largest oil exporter in the world, selling 106 million barrels, an average of around 400,000 barrels a day. Gomez allowed American oil companies to write the laws around oil production in Venezuela, which was a good idea for the American oil companies and Gomez, but a bad idea for Venezuela. Now, we've seen that kind of thing before, and when they let the American companies, like they did that in Haiti as well, they let the American companies write all the laws around the industry. This caused the entire economy to pivot away from agriculture towards oil. Economists call this the Dutch disease, so named because in 1959, the manufacturing industry of the Netherlands tanked when they discovered oil. But now, anytime a country kind of specializes in one thing it's really good at and forgets about it, and all the other industries suffer as a result, it's called the Dutch disease. But as it turns out, the Dutch disease in Venezuela also involves oil. They didn't just ignore other industries, however. They also ignored what many of us might consider the basic functions of government, including health, education, and any infrastructure not associated with oil. In 1944, even more oil fields were discovered, which ramped up production to the almost comical 1 million barrels a day, a lot of which was being used to power World War II. In 1955, a popular revolt led by Acción Democrática, a socialist party founded by Romulo Betancourt, remember him?
Vaguely.
You will, don't worry.
Okay.
Romulo Betancourt took over the government and installed Betancourt as president. If you want to hear more about the delightful Mr. Betancourt and see a photo of him doing a press conference with his hands blown off, you should check out our episode Operation Power Pack 2, which goes into the murderous obsession the dictator of the Dominican Republic, Trujillo, had with him.
Good times.
Yeah, you remember now.
Yeah.
Remember the photo? It was a classic.
Oh,
Brilliant.
yeah.
The ensuing socialist government was called El Trienio Adeco, and the trienio there should give you an indication of how long it lasted. As a socialist group, they recognize the first responsibility of any government that takes over is...
Oh, you're talking to me?
Yes.
Oh, the people.
Yes, or more specifically, to hold elections.
Yeah.
If you take over a country in a military coup, your first responsibility is to hold democratic elections. Whether or not you do so is a separate issue, but your first responsibility is to hold democratic elections, right? Now, these guys were socialists, so they kind of understood that. And in 1946, they held the first free and fair democratic National Assembly elections in the history of Venezuela.
Was it free and fair, though?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And, well, you'll see more about that later on. Sometimes the free and fair elections do result in voting in people who are definitely dictators, even though the elections themselves are free and fair. That happens sometimes. Not much, but it happens. The coup party, Acción Democrática, won 136 of the 160 seats, validating the coup, pretty much. They immediately set about a program for land reform and a national education system. And now land reform will be already ringing bells in Langley and all these places. Land reform, you know. In 1947, there was another election, this time for president, because the presidential elections and the National Assembly elections are different, as they are in some places, and America too. This time for president, and Romulo Gallegos won, again with a vast majority, the first freely elected president in Venezuelan history. During his reign, his development minister, Juan Pablo Pérez Alfonso, and this guy's a rock star, promoted increasing the tax revenue on oil exports to 50%, which was later called the 50-50 rule. The American oil companies retaliated by threatening to source their oil elsewhere. Wow. Pérez Alfonso responded by going elsewhere and telling them to adopt the 50-50 rule too, which they did. And this was the first whisper of what would become the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, which we all know as OPEC. With all this democracy floating around, and with the massive support of the Venezuelan people for the socialist government, something had to give.
What?
Because it's too much democracy. You can't have too much democracy in a place.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I know, right? With all this democracy floating around, something had to give. In 1948, a coup organized by Carlos Delgado, Gallegos' Minister of Defense, and Marcos Pérez Jiménez, a high-ranking military officer. Gallegos and his ministers were forced into exile. The justification, this is 1948 now, the justification for the coup was never entirely clear. But a few days later, Delgado felt he had to justify himself to the US ambassador in a way he didn't feel he had to justify himself to the Venezuelan people. This guy, Delgado, claimed that Gallegos had allowed himself to be controlled by Betancourt and that his government was trying to impose a Marxist government even at the risk of civil war. There is no evidence for any of this, by the way. This is just what he told the American ambassador. And I guess if you're talking to an American ambassador and you want to attract funding from America, just say, we're facing a Marxist guy.
Right.
And then the funding will go up, right? I'm guessing, I don't know. From his exile, Gallegos had one question, right? One question. His exile was in Cuba. And the question he had was, ¿Qué significa la presencia constante por personas que muestran de defensa absoluta en el grado militar de embajada potencia extranjera con extranjeros de cuarto considero de uno de los diferentes cuarteles de Caracas mientras estaba desarrollando la insurrección militar? Which I think is a very good question. The question is, in English, I just love Spanish, sorry. The question is, what does it mean that a military attaché from a foreign embassy was acting as a collaborator or advisor at one of the main barracks in Caracas while the military insurrection was taking place, a fact confirmed by people I trust completely, right? Now, that question, you will notice, does not mention which foreign embassy he's talking about, but we all know what it is, even though he didn't, and that'll tell you about what the answer is as well, right?
Yeah, it was Norway, right?
Yeah.
So.
A military attaché from a foreign embassy was acting as a collaborator and advisor at one of the main barracks in Caracas while the insurrection was taking place. Right?
Damn Norwegians.
Those Norwegians, again, they just don't know when to quit, do they?
No.
The junta, led by Delgado and Perez Jimenez, ruled Venezuela from 1948 until 1950, when Delgado was kidnapped and murdered under suspicious circumstances. All evidence
Well,
pointed to...
if you're kidnapped and murdered, I think the suspicious circumstances doesn't need to be said.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. And I already have too many words in this thing. The junta, led by Delgado and Perez Jimenez, ruled Venezuela from 1948 until 1950, when Delgado was kidnapped and murdered. All evidence pointed to Rafael Simón Urbina, a professional rebel who had tried to organize coups against Juan Vicente Gomez on multiple occasions with help from Trujillo in the Dominican Republic. He was arrested and murdered the same day, also under suspicious circumstances. No, not also, because we deleted it. He was arrested and murdered the same day. That'll do, right?
Yeah.
That was just a rhetorical flourish, to be honest. You're right, I didn't need any of those words. However it happened, from 1950, the military junta changed its name to the government junta, and Perez Jimenez was the dictator of Venezuela. The post-war automobile market kicked off in the US mostly, but in other places too, leading to higher oil prices, leading to Venezuela becoming the richest country in South America, which might not sound like it. It might be like saying you're the tallest dwarf in the circus. But as it was largely insulated from the devastation of World War II, in 1950, Venezuela was the fourth richest country in the world per capita.
Oh, wow.
And that means something. That's not nothing. Although Perez Jimenez embarked on a large public works program, including public infrastructure, public housing, and attempts to diversify the economy, he was also very, very corrupt and became incredibly rich as a result of the oil revenues. He also ran the country with his own secret police called the Dirección de Seguridad Nacional, the National Security Directorate. Now, in familiar news to regular viewers, the main business of the DSN was not so much national security, but the arrest, torture, or assassination of Perez Jimenez's political opponents. They also operated a number of forced labor prison camps, including a famous one on Guasina Island in the middle of the Orinoco River and surrounded by rainforest. In 1952, it's beautiful, but you don't want to be there. In 1952, Perez Jimenez, apparently making the classic dictator mistake of imagining that everyone loved him, and now we've seen this before in different podcasts, where a dictator was somehow allowed to think that everybody thought he was great. He held a National Assembly election. Although the election itself was fair, the media was tightly controlled and several parties were banned. Fair in the sense of they weren't soldiers at the ballot boxes like they are in Iraq, like they were in Iraq. Including Acción Democrática, which had absolutely dominated the previous elections, and the Communist Party of Venezuela, which had also been banned from the 1931 to 1941 under Gomez. Perez Jimenez obviously regarded it as a referendum on how amazing he was as a president because he kept pushing that line in the national media. Things got so obvious that the president of the Electoral Council had to remind everyone in the country that these were National Assembly elections and technically nothing to do with the president at all. Mid-count, it became clear that Perez Jimenez's party, the hilariously named Independent Electoral Front, was going to lose. Junta snapped into action and stopped not only the count, but all media coverage. 2 days later, Perez Jimenez himself announced that the hilariously named Independent Electoral Front had won decisively, after which the entire junta resigned and handed supreme power to Perez Jimenez. He was now a dictator not only in fact, but legally. In 1954, this next sentence. In 1954, Eisenhower's government awarded Perez Jimenez the Legion of Merit. This, according to their own website, which I just looked at a few days ago, this award is given to those who have distinguished themselves by exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding services. It certainly wasn't because the US had just granted Betancourt a visa, and Perez Jimenez wasn't happy about it. In any case, a progress report to Eisenhower's National Security Council said the award had the desired effect because US relations with Venezuela promptly took a turn for the better. Nice.
Here's a shiny thing. Now do what we want.
Yeah. And what they wanted was
oil.
Yep. In 1950, see, people used to make fun of. Do you remember the Iraq invasion and right-wingers made fun of how simplistic the left-wing analysis was when they said they're doing this for the oil? Sometimes it really is that simple. There's complicated machinery behind it, but it's that simple. And in Venezuela, it's definitely that simple. And I'll put the case for making it that simple as well later on by giving you evidence and so on. 6,000 words, folks. We're nearly there. We're nowhere near there. In 1955, Perez Jimenez withdrew Venezuela from the ILO, the UN body responsible for setting and maintaining international labor standards.
Okay.
So we're leaning more and more towards fascism.
Yeah.
In 1957, Perez Jimenez decided to have another election, which was not a million miles away from "Do you still like me, yes or no?" This time the election itself was rigged, and a vast majority of Venezuelans said yes. And by the way, the election did say yes or no. It wasn't worded "Do you still like me, yes or no?" but it was a yes or no question. And a vast majority of Venezuelans said yes. By early 1958, it became clear that Perez Jimenez had pushed Venezuela too far, and both the armed forces and the people on the ground were separately mounting strikes, rebellions, and coup attempts. In late January, Perez Jimenez gave up and ran off to the Dominican Republic, to be with his friend Trujillo. People took to the streets, destroying junta buildings and lynching government officials. In particular, a mob attacked the DNS headquarters in Caracas, destroying the building and releasing over 400 people who were being held and tortured there. The DNS would never reform. That was the end of the DNS forever. Yay. A general called, this poor guy, this poor fucker, right? I know he was a part of the junta, but Jesus. A general called Larrazabal found himself in charge for no reason other than he was the highest ranking army officer on site and still standing. He had no idea what to do. Perez Jimenez had left no instructions or intentions or anything. He just ran out of the country. Larrazabal found himself running a country that had no functional government, and he was basically doing admin on a series of street riots and power grabs. The good news is that the three main opposition parties of Venezuela decided to hold a proper election and work together on that, which is always nice because sometimes the opposition parties do not do that, and then you have a civil war and things get really nasty. But these guys work together. The Communist Party of Venezuela was excluded from these meetings and arrangements because the opposition parties of Venezuela are not complete fucking morons. Also good news was the return of Betancourt as the leader of Acción Democrática, a man who knew how to get things done. In only the second free national elections in Venezuelan history, Acción Democrática and Rómulo Betancourt won convincingly. One of his first acts was to establish what he later called the Betancourt Doctrine, a sort of mirror image of US foreign policy, where he committed Venezuela to severing relations with any state run by a dictator or that had a demonstrably undemocratic government. As part of his inauguration speech, he said, this is Betancourt now, regimes that do not respect human rights, that violate the liberties of their citizens and tyranny with the support of totalitarian policies must be subjected to a rigorous cordon sanitaire and eradicated through the collective peaceful action of the international legal community. Cordon sanitaire, you know what a cordon sanitaire is?
No.
It's a French word, obviously. What it means like a gap you put between the sensible political part of your government and the crazies.
Okay.
And if you decide to just keep the crazies out of all the important meetings, what you're doing is you're putting a cordon sanitaire. They'll be aware of this, by the way. There's not a lot I can do about it if everybody gets together and decide, we cannot deal with you because you're Nazis.
Right.
We cannot talk to you. We can't invite you to the foreign policy meetings. I know you're a democratically elected person, but we cannot have anything to do with you. It's called a cordon sanitaire. So he said this guy wanted a cordon sanitaire with any of these guys. And accordingly, Venezuela immediately cut diplomatic relations with the governments of Spain, because Spain were fascist at the time, if you remember. Franco, yeah. The Soviet Union, all Eastern Bloc states, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Argentina, Peru, Ecuador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Haiti. Right? Now, the thing about Betancourt is he does not hate Latin America and the Caribbean. He is genuinely trying to put together this democratic principle. And it's just unfortunate that he's shafting a lot of his other people who would otherwise be on his side. He's just got principles, right? The Americans were happy, of course, at first. Betancourt also set about the land distribution program that he had overseen before the junta redistributed the land back to big landowners. So I guess he's doing a land redistribution program.
Yeah. So
the Americans would not have been happy about that. In 1960, the US passed a law imposing oil quotas on Venezuela. Betancourt's oil minister, Juan Pablo Perez Alfonso, who you may remember from above as the inventor of the 50-50 rule, attended an oil conference in Cairo, Egypt, funded by the major British and American oil companies. Here, he covertly approached many oil-producing companies about setting up an alliance. In September 1960, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela formed OPEC, which would forever change the relationship between the West and the oil they needed to run their machines. And I like that he did it covertly at a conference funded by the Americans and the English, because OPEC was set up specifically to counter the American and English oil narrative and oil dominance, right?
Yep.
And that's how you do it. That's a very left-wing thing to do, is to form alliances to challenge power and authority. The government pumped money into education, building new universities and schools and other public infrastructure projects. Despite the OPEC upset, Kennedy's government in Washington underwrote a lot of the expense under their Alliance for Progress, a general funding program for Latin America. That's Betancourt on the left, and Kennedy, you may recognize him. Bienvenidos, right? According to his government in Washington, underwrote a lot of the expense under their Alliance for Progress, a general funding program for Latin America. In 1961, Kennedy personally took his Alliance for Progress roadshow to a small village in Venezuela, appearing with Betancourt to formally approve of the land redistribution efforts, or the land redistribution efforts. We have video of the speeches. So I'm going to show you one video. The first video is going to be Kennedy. It's going to be like 20 seconds. Kennedy talking, okay? Go.
Program is at the heart of the Alianza para el Progreso. For no real progress is possible unless the benefits of increased prosperity are shared by the people themselves.
That's correct, right?
Yep.
Good sentiment, terrible Spanish, right? Now, but really the reason I wanted to show you that video is because after this, Jackie Kennedy also made a speech, and I'm going to give you more than a minute of this because it is glorious, right? For a start, if any of you guys speak Spanish, fantastic. If you don't, you will pick it up from words that sound like English. Okay, go.
The president then invites Mrs. Kennedy to address the audience.
Me alegro haber podido acompañar a mi marido a Venezuela. La distinción y la importancia de vuestra cultura ya me eran conocidos. También me han impresionado vuestros esfuerzos por mejorar las condiciones de vida de vuestro pueblo. Yo sé que no hay esposa, ni madre, ni padre, ni familia en este continente que pueda conformarse hasta que los habitantes de todos nuestros pueblos tengan oportunidades de trabajo bien remunerado, pueden vivir decentemente y recibir enseñanza. Estas cosas deberían estar al alcance de todos y no limitarse a unos pocos afortunados.
Right? There you go. Isn't that wonderful?
Oh, it's always nice to see her.
Isn't it fantastic? First of all, she can speak Spanish. It wasn't like Alianza para Progreso business, right? She can speak Spanish properly. Second, you compare the reaction of the people to her speech to Kennedy's. Kennedy's like, okay. And when she was finished, they're like, way! She's fucking brilliant. Anyway, I'm glad I got to show you that video. Much respect to Jackie Kennedy. I don't know what... I suppose John was doing his best with the information he had. The information he had is we need the oil. So, right?
Yeah.
By the early 1970s, OPEC's membership accounted for more than half of worldwide oil production. This was just in time to catch the 1973 oil crisis. In 1973, the Arab members of OPEC decided to unilaterally raise their prices by 70% and placed a total embargo on any countries who supported Israel in the Yom Kippur War.
So I remember it being high, but I realized it was that fucking high. Damn.
It was hot, yeah. And any countries that supported the Yom Kippur War were embargoed by all of OPEC countries, right?
Boy, wouldn't it be cool if they did something like that now with what's going on over there?
Oh, well, unfortunately, a lot of Arab countries are in the U.S. pockets right now.
I know.
It's kind of sad. You'd like to see OPEC, but this is like, the whole point of OPEC was to act as a bulwark against American... Anyway, we're not talking about OPEC, we're here to talk about Venezuela. The sudden bump in oil prices made Venezuela very rich, and the government embarked on a massive public spending program, which was entered into with perhaps more optimism than forward planning, which is a feature not only of Venezuelan politics, but I guess every country. It's very rare that you see a policy costing a lot of money that you enter into with forward planning. One of the very few I've seen for myself is Eisenhower's state highway system. They built that system knowing that they wouldn't have the traffic for it for at least 20 years. That kind of forward planning, very rare. Fair play to whoever.
We're still driving on the same goddamn roads that are falling apart, but you know.
That's true, but at the time it was forward planning and it was genius.
Yep.
Very good, very good. Yeah. But that's quite rare. In case you're thinking, oh, he's always trashing America. No, they did a great thing with the state highway program was wonderful and fantastic, well funded and well done.
We stopped there. So
No, there's loads of things America does great. We just don't talk about them on the podcast. I'm not going to lie. America does loads of things great. Don't.
Move on.
Right. The sudden bump in oil prices made Venezuela very rich. Venezuela's external debt grew from $2 billion in 1972 to $33 billion by 1982. In 1976, Venezuela nationalized the entire oil industry and set up Petrolia But yeah, right. Petróleo de Venezuela S.A. or PDVSA, which are letters that don't seem to go together in my mind because every time I say them, I get them mixed up. But the National Oil Company is called PDVSA. And now this is all we're talking about from now on. The state-owned petrol company. All foreign oil companies that once did business in Venezuela were replaced by Venezuelan companies. Perez Alfonso was not happy. This guy who thought up the 50-50 rule and invented OPEC. He said, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you will see oil will bring us ruin. It is the devil's excrement. Now, yeah, not only is he right, but you could pick any year in Venezuelan history from 1914 to from 20 years ago, and that would be true. So was he just narrating or was he predicting something? I don't know.
Yeah.
In 1979, there was no slowing oil down as the Iranian Revolution caused another spike in prices. Surely this unicorn of cash will keep running forever. After 1980, the massive prices caused industries and governments to buy less oil, which created what the New York Times called an oil glut, and which the oil industry called a temporary surplus. Although energy demands tend to be, this is true by the way in every country, energy demands tend to be inelastic. Although energy demands tend to be inelastic, OPEC had horribly underestimated the possibility of coal, natural gas, and nuclear power to cut into their margins. And the more expensive oil gets, the more energy they're going to put into these alternatives, right?
Yeah.
Like, people are getting green now, not really because they love the environment, but because oil is going to get super expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing with vegetarianism. People are going to stop eating meat, not because they love animals, but because meat is going to get too expensive. Whatever it was, it cut this oil glut cut oil prices in half from 1980 to 1986, during a period when the price of everything else seemed to be going up. Everything was worse, getting worse in Venezuela year on year. A new president in 1988 tried some drastic measures to make the country more liquid, including selling off the state-owned national telecommunications company, 3 banks, a shipyard, 2 sugar mills, and an airline. Nothing worked. By the mid-1990s, street riots were common and inflation was up to 60%.
Wow.
In 1994, a combination of the bad oil prices and economic liberalization, i.e. a lack of regulation, led to a collapse of the banking sector. In total, 17 banks collapsed and were taken over by the government, representing over half the entire money supply of Venezuela. By 1996, inflation was running at 100%.
Wow.
Now, imagine what it's like to live in Venezuela in 1996 and you want to buy, let's say you want to buy a pan of bread. What are you going to do if you want to buy some bread in Venezuela in 1996?
Not eating bread.
You can't go to the supermarket because by the time it takes you to go from your house to the supermarket, the price has gone up by $1. So how are you going to get bread? What are you going to do? When you say something like inflation has gone up to 100%, you are not saying that the prices of everything are doubling every year. What you're saying is that the entire economy has gone underground.
Yeah. And
when that happens, a government becomes non-functional because you're not getting any tax revenues, you're not getting any information about what's going on, you've lost complete control over the economy. So it's not just a problem of huge prices on goods, although that is a problem. The problem is that your whole government is pretty much going underground, everything.
Just like it is now.
Just like it is now. Oh no, now there's no government at all in Venezuela.
No, I was talking about here, but anyways.
Oh, here, yeah. What's the inflation rate in America now?
Yeah, I don't even know. It's fucking insane.
In Ireland, it's something like 14%.
Wow.
Well, that just includes American multinationals that are based in Dublin. If you take out all those, it's about 4%.
Gotcha.
Right? Don't worry, everybody. In February 1999, Venezuela had a new president who won the 1998 presidential election with what he called the Bolivarian Revolution. He was called Hugo Chavez.
I've heard of this guy.
Chavez had been a part of a desperate failed coup attempt in 1992, but was released as part of it. He was put in jail for that. But he was released as part of a series of election promises from the government, from the current government. Things were very bad in Venezuela to the point where no one trusted any of the establishment parties. So it wasn't difficult for Chavez to position himself as a maverick outsider and also as someone who has the experience and cojones to get things done. This is quite a difficult trick to pull, because usually people who know how to do things, like let's say Hillary Clinton, who for all her difficulties was definitely a professional politician and understands how Washington works. People like that find it difficult to position themselves as maverick outsiders because they tend not to be that. And then maverick outsiders tend to have a hard time explaining to people that they know what they're doing. And sometimes if you're like Trump, you pretend that's a positive. You take it to the ballot box and say, I have no idea what I'm doing and this is a good thing, right? But Chavez kind of understood how the system worked, and also he was a maverick outsider because he came right out of jail. No one was quite sure what to make of him. He seemed to defy all categorization. He was making very socialist noises, but also seemed to welcome capitalism and globalization, as Venezuela would be impossible to operate without the oil revenues. Jorge Olivaria, a Venezuelan who served on Chavez's Constitutional Reform Commission, said in 1999, we don't know if Chavez is a fascist, a communist, an anarchist, a Peronist, a Fidelist. We just don't know. Maybe he's none of that. Maybe he's all of it. In America,
Interesting.
What?
So that's interesting.
Yes, when he started off, yeah. And I guess the way he carried on, anyway, we'll see. In America, ever the land of hope and change, he was greeted warmly. He threw the first pitch at the Yankees game on June the 10th. He rang the final bell on Wall Street on the next day, right? That's him ringing the final close of business bell on Wall Street with the
What
banner.
year is this?
1999.
Okay.
This relationship would degrade sharply very quickly, as you are aware.
Okay.
That's Fidel Castro and Hugo Chavez propping him up, right? I'm just going to leave that there for a while. In 1999, Chavez put together a social Bolivarian constitution which completely reorganized and reprioritized the government and put that to a referendum. It passed with 72% approval, marking the beginning of the Fifth Republic of Venezuela, or as Chavez calls it, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. The constitution also provided for midterm recall elections for presidents. Chavez immediately began implementing what he called the Bolivarian missions, a series of social programs designed to lift Venezuela out of its crisis, all funded by the PDVSA.
They really like to throw his name around a lot.
Who does?
Bolivaria.
Oh, yeah. Well, he consciously hunted down that connection.
Right.
And I can't imagine Bolivar would have anything at all much to say about oil, but anyway.
Yeah.
Some of these missions included third-level courses for adults, remedial high school classes to people who dropped out of school, basic reading, writing, and maths classes to anyone who wanted them. Another mission promoted Venezuelans' access to nutritious, safe, and locally and nationally sourced food. Would that we had that in every country.
Right.
Another mission aimed to provide comprehensive community health care, especially in poorer areas, and thankfully we have something like that in Ireland. Another series of missions were ambitious social housing projects. Holy shit, could we do with that in Ireland? Ireland is one of the richest countries in the world, right? We're doing really well in our economy. Everything is kind of great, more or less, but our housing situation is a crisis.
We have similar issues here, as you know.
Yeah, there's a government program that helps people come up with money for rent called HAP, H-A-P, right? Housing Assistance Program. The number of HAP-compliant rentals available in Clonmel right now in my town is 0.
Wow.
If you are on HAP, if you are on government assistance and you want somewhere to live, you cannot live in Clonmel. It's insane. You have to live in a bush. Like, the homeless is just insane here. It doesn't make any sense at all. Anyway, with the amount of money we have in the country, oh no, it's insane. I mean, if we were poor, that's fair enough, right?
Yep.
Anyway, another mission, was a simple land reform program aimed at breaking up large estates and handing the land over to peasant farmers, right? Basically the kulak, right?
Right.
The program was more or less successful. Poverty fell from 49% in 1999 to 30% in 2006, which is not great, but it's a big improvement. And extreme poverty went down from 21% to 10%, according to the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. Holy shit, I mispronounced 3 of those words. The United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. Many rich people and right-wing conservatives found the whole project intolerable, and they left the country for their spiritual home, the United States. In 1998, a total of 14 Venezuelans were granted asylum by the US. In 1999, it was 1,086.
Wow.
With all of this socialism, Chavez was basically declaring war on the United States, or at least what Chomsky calls the US hegemony in the region. He had revealed himself to be a revolutionary socialist of the kind the Americans cannot have on their side of the planet. He was also on friendly terms with Fidel Castro. Now, there's not a lot anyone could do about him as long as the oil prices were rising, but they would try. In 2001, at an all-American conference, Bush's government tried to push NAFTA on everybody. You remember NAFTA?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Chavez felt this agreement would only ever be in the interests of the United States, and understanding from history what the US means by the term free trade, he refused to have anything to do with it. By 2002, there was some unrest in Venezuela. All the wrong cages were being rattled, and there did not appear to be any end in sight to the reforms. At one particular protest, this protest was about the appointments to the PDVSA after most of the board were fired by Chavez. 19 protesters were shot by troops very close to the presidential palace.
Jesus.
Chavez snapped into crisis mode and activated Plan Avila, which was a military public order and defense plan designed to stabilize Caracas during emergencies. The military refused to follow the order and instead arrested him.
Oh, wow.
Now, in 2002, yeah. After maybe the weirdest 48 hours in Venezuelan history, he was reinstated as president 2 days later, mostly due to massive public protests and demonstrations over how he was removed from power, and also the military chiefs, the same people who arrested him, refused to deal with Pedro Carmona, the interim president, because apparently he was just a complete prick, this guy. He wasn't not a good person.
That's fortunate.
Yeah. A lot of Chavez's stuff is he kind of got lucky a lot of times. This is something about...
Was it televised?
Hey, the revolution will not be televised. That's what it says, right? Two Irish documentary makers were in Venezuela at the time making a documentary about Chavez when they accidentally ended up capturing the entire coup on camera. It's called The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. If you want to see one of these things, look up close. If you know little about Latin American history, you will now be asking, was the CIA involved? If you know a lot about Latin American history, you will now be asking, how involved was the CIA? The White House claimed they were as blindsided as everyone else by the coup, but declassified documents indicate that they not only knew about the coup, but were closely tracking all elements of it. And here is what I'm going to... again, this is me fucking with Seamus, because... can you see... Hang on. Can you see Senior Executive Intelligence Brief?
Now I can.
Right. And this is the actual national security information that was given the CIA thing, right? That got declassified in 2007. I'll see where are the words. There we go. Can you see that? Can you read that? It says Venezuela conditions ripening for coup attempt, right?
Nice.
Right? You see that?
Uh-huh.
And the date on it is 6th of April 2002, right?
Okay.
Okay. Now, don't worry. I'm showing you that for a reason, okay? You're going to like this. Where are we? 5 days...
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able...
Sorry.
The revolution will not be televised. That's a great track. If you want. What's
Fuck yeah, it is.
Gil Scott-Heron, right?
Yep. Nice.
Gil
Nice recall,
Scott-Heron.
bro.
Yeah.
It's mentioned quite a bit in the One Battle After Another film. So
Is it? I haven't seen it.
Oh,
It's
you
great.
gotta fucking... I'm going to shut up because I'll go on ad nauseum about it right now, but we'll have to talk about it at some point.
I like Gil Scott-Heron in general, to be honest.
Yeah.
5 days before the coup, a classified report was compiled in the CIA called Venezuela Conditions Ripening for Coup Attempt. You've seen this report and you've seen the date on it. That report was issued 5 days before the coup. You can say, wow, the CIA is really on top of things, or the CIA is really on top of things. Right? A few weeks before the coup, the State Department had a number of meetings with Pedro Carmona, who ended up taking over the country. The Venezuela chief of the armed forces, who had accepted Chavez's non-existent resignation, had also had meetings with Defense Department officials. I mean, like he publicly said, I have accepted Chavez's resignation, but Chavez never resigned. He also had meetings with Defense Department officials at the Pentagon a few months beforehand, including with Roger Pardo Maurer, who served as the chief of staff to the Nicaraguan Contras representative in Washington.
Oh, Jesus, these fucking guys.
These fucking guys. Between 1986 and 1989. If you'd like to know more about that, see our episode Iran-Contra.
Yeah.
The New York Times reported that the New York Times reported that a Defense Department official said, "We were not discouraging people. We were sending informal, subtle signals that we don't like this guy." Right? And you know how informal and subtle the CIA can get?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Formal.
Chavez himself claimed that the Venezuelan military personnel working in the Washington, Bogota, and Brasilia embassies returned to Caracas with no explanations a few days before the coup. At an emergency OAS meeting, the Organization of American States we discussed in the previous podcast, one OAS diplomat said, "We were in that room for 14 hours, and for most of that 14 hours, Noriega was pushing the line that it was Chavez who had created the problem." And if you'd like to know more about the delightful Noriega...
why would Noriega be saying that?
Please see our podcast, The Canal. And while almost every OAS country condemned the coup, one of them immediately and warmly recognized the new president, Carmona. Guess which one?
Noriega?
No, the United States.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, even Noriega didn't go that far.
Wow.
Condoleezza Rice, President Bush's national security advisor, said after the coup...
That fucking guy. Oh, no.
That fucking guy. Condoleezza
That
Rice.
fucking woman. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of her either. Why do you hate black women of color? Why do you hate women of color? Condoleezza Rice, President Bush's national security advisor, said after the coup attempt, "We do hope that Chavez recognizes that the whole world is watching and that he takes advantage of this opportunity to right his own ship, which has been moving, frankly, in the wrong direction for quite a long time. On his return to government,
did you remember Jon Stewart actually interviewed her and Hillary to try to understand women in politics and stuff?
oh,
And I'm just like, John, no.
who would you interview then?
Not those fucking two.
Who would you interview to understand?
Nina Turner. I fucking love
Oh,
Nina
you
Turner.
told me about Nina Turner before.
I
Yeah,
love Nina Turner. I just look for excuse to talk to her about anything. But
yeah, fair
she's
enough.
awesome. She's awesome.
Yeah.
Rashida Tlaib, Ilya Omar, those folks.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any woman who doesn't sell herself down the river, I guess.
yeah, which I think that's the list is already. Yeah, that's the list. So that's about it. Yeah.
Okay. On his return to government 2 days later, Chavez's reaction was again hard to categorize. On the one hand, he reinstated the PDVSA directors whose dismissal was one of the main causes of the street protests that led to the coup in the first place. But he also fired thousands of PDVSA workers who had gone on strike. Now, what kind of a person, what kind of political, would you say, tradition would come from firing a load of people who were on strike?
Fascist?
Yes. So, is he a fascist, is the question.
Definitely fascist-ish.
Well, that was a fascist thing to do.
Yeah.
But Chavez's reaction, as I said, was again hard to categorize. On the other hand, he also bought 100,000 AK-47 rifles and a bunch of military helicopters from Russia, and he expanded the army by recruiting more soldiers. So
that's fascist.
Well, then you have all these social programs and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, he's hard to categorize, this Chavez guy. He's basically a Rorschach, I guess. If you tell me what you think he is, then you're telling me what you are.
But I don't think doing deals with Russia sways it one way or the other. It depends upon what the deal is. You know what I mean?
Maybe not now, yeah. It's not like 1960. If you did in 1960s, you
different. That's fair.
Enough. Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, it still could be fash. Depends on what we're talking about.
You
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
in 2004, a recall referendum, an instrument of the Constitution written in by Chavez himself, was levelled against Chavez. 59% of the electorate voted not to recall him, which is probably a little tighter than he would have liked or expected. Also this year, he called Bush a pendejo, or fucking idiot.
What year is this? I'm sorry?
2004.
Oh, okay, so already after 9/11 and all the Iraq.
Pendejo is a Mexican word, a Spanish word, I guess, and it means pubic hair. But when they say it, what it means it means fucking idiot. And it doesn't mean like idiot, because idiot they say idiota, right? But pendejo specifically means fucking idiot, right? Like that. And it has
that. Bring up what he said at the UN. Oh yeah, I think you are, aren't you?
Do you have the script?
I just clicked on it just to look. Yeah, I should have just did that instead of ask. Go ahead.
That's okay. And you can, if I miss something, you have to.
It's all good. Go ahead.
To fill in the gaps. In 2005, Chavez set up Petrocaribe to sell oil to Caribbean and Latin American countries at low prices. They only had to pay half up front, and the rest was financed from a 25-year loan at 1% interest a year with no payments due for 2 years. You can't even get a second-hand car on those deals, right? He was given cheap oil. The Venezuelan government was not in this for the money. 18 countries signed up immediately, including Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Suriname, and Jamaica. Haiti had been excluded as long as Jean-Bertrand Aristide was president, but after Aristide was kidnapped by the CIA, negotiations and oil shipments to Haiti began. If you want to know more about the kidnapping of Jean-Bertrand Aristide, see our episode Operation Uphold Democracy 3.
Yeah, I mean, really like citing like 12 episodes.
Well, that's what I wanted to do when I started this podcast. That was my vision, is that it would all hook up together and everything would kind of make sense with regard to.
I know it's just funny. By the time we get to episode 100, and see episodes 12 through 38, and
pretty much. That's what I want. That's what I wanted. In 2006, at a speech of the United Nations, Chavez said, "The devil came here yesterday. It still smells of sulfur today." He was talking about Bush. He continued that the US was promoting a false democracy of the elite and a democracy of bombs, which is fair enough. He further claimed that Bush came here talking as if he were the owner of the world. And I imagine if you're in Latin America, that's what it looks like when the Americans start talking. During his weekly addresses at various points during 2006, he called Bush a donkey, a coward, an assassin, a mass murderer, a drunk, a sick man, and an alcoholic. Did I miss anything?
No, I just remember how pissed people were. But at the same time, so many people were like, he's not fucking wrong. You know what
I mean? I don't know. Was Bush an alcoholic?
He was before. He was supposedly recovering. He was a recovering alcoholic and wasn't drinking anymore. But I know people had said he'd been drinking during the office. I don't know if he did or not. I'm not honestly. I give a fuck. You know what I mean? I mean, just look at his policies is enough to be the issue. That's, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
but this guy called him a donkey and an alcoholic.
yeah, well, you know.
In December 2006, Chavez secured his position as president by winning 63% of the vote in the national presidential election. The opposition's slogan was "Ni el imperio ni el barbuda," which means not the empire and not the guy with the beard.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
what do you think they mean by that?
Guy of the empire, guy with the beard. Oh,
Yeah,
the beard.
not the empire, also not the guy with the beard. So who's the guy with the beard?
Castro.
Correct. Because they were trying to imply that he was taking orders from Castro.
Okay. Yeah,
and because he was very friendly with him, Castro was definitely advising him, so that's not a bad slogan to have for the opposition. It makes sense. We don't want the Americans running our country, and we certainly don't want the Cubans running our country, right? We want Venezuelans running country. Fair enough. Chavez won. Chavez's slogan had a few more words. Here is Chavez's election slogan. Always, in English this time, always, I have siempre, always, I have done everything out of love. For the love of trees and rivers, I became a painter. For the love of knowledge, I left my dearest village to study. For the love of sports, I became a ball player. I assume he means baseball. For the love of the motherland, I became a soldier. For the love of the people, I became president, and you made me president. I've ruled these years out of love. For love, we did Barrio Adentro. For love, we did Mission Robinson. For love, we did Marcal. They're all socialist welfare programs. We have done everything for love. There's a lot left to do. I need more time. I need your vote. Your vote for love. That was his slogan. And unfortunately, love don't pay the bills, right?
No.
Not a bad slogan, I guess. I mean, he did all those things. At the start of 2008, we're getting into a period that I actually remember now. At the start of 2008, oil was selling for $145 a barrel. By the end of 2008, a barrel of oil was $32 a barrel.
Drop.
This was a kick in the teeth for the Venezuelan economy, which had suffered from the Dutch disease. It was even more suffering from the Dutch disease now, if you remember what the Dutch disease is. According to the World Bank, 96% of the country's exports and nearly half its fiscal revenue relied on oil production. 96% of the exports. That's how much the Dutch disease was infecting this country.
Wow.
Chavez was not a man to back down or change horses midstream, however, and he kept funding social programs at the same level as before, as if he had the same money there to spend. The resulting imbalances led to rising inflation, rampant poverty, and shortages. That is an actual, genuine photo of a Venezuelan supermarket during these times.
That's right.
I don't care. I mean, what the fuck are you supposed to do if you want to feed your family?
Starve, apparently.
You starve. That's option number one. Option number two?
Starve.
Right. Your options are you starve to death.
Or cannibalism.
You starve to death. You eat things you don't normally eat. You can go underground and become a criminal and consort with criminals, or you leave the country, right?
I mean, you should become a criminal before it gets this far. That's what I would.
But that's
what I would think in a hypothetical society, not Detroit, Michigan, in a couple of weeks.
But this is, during this time, Venezuela was experiencing massive levels of immigration.
Awesome.
And staring at that picture, I mean, that's terrifying. If you saw, imagine if Tesco was like that across the river from me. Imagine if the shops were like that. I would fucking shit myself. Anyway, by the middle of 2008, there were acute shortages of 16% of all goods markets. In 2009, Chavez called Obama ignorant and claimed Obama has the same stench as Bush after the U.S. accused.
Wasn't wrong.
I know how you feel about this, Chavez.
Yeah.
The U.S. accused Venezuela of supporting the insurgent Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, FARC. In 2011, Chavez called Obama a clown, an embarrassment, and a shame to black people.
Oh, well, there's quite a few black folks that'll agree with that, too. So.
There is. In 2012, Chavez won another presidential election, this time by a much tighter margin of 54%. As he was in Cuba undergoing treatment for cancer at the time, he could not attend his own inauguration, and a decision was made by the Supreme Court, given that it was just the same guy, that it could be dispensed with. In March of 2013, Vice President Maduro announced the death of Hugo Chavez and took over the government.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Well, at least that he died. Not Maduro, although we'll talk about him now.
Maduro is definitely alive.
Yeah.
Maduro took over a Venezuela that was hurtling into a crisis, as well as being mid-crisis. He seemed to have all the glory hunting and populist instincts of Chavez, but none of his leadership skills or basic statesmanship. Maduro seemed more concerned about maintaining his status with his allies and public opinion, desperate to be seen as another Chavez, than helping the poor people of Venezuela away from the cliff they were driving off. That's Maduro talking to a lady I'll be talking about in a second.
Okay.
In 2014, Venezuela entered an economic recession, and The Economist said Venezuela was probably the world's worst managed economy. In 2015, oil prices dropped again, and in 2016, inflation in Venezuela hit 800%.
Yikes.
What are you going to do if you want to buy a can of beans?
You don't.
There's nothing on the shelves. Inflation's at 800%. You have to deal with criminals. Or leave the country. Or starve, as you said. Right? That's the kind of country you're living in. In 2016, the National Assembly declared a healthcare emergency and that the healthcare system was running out of even basic medication. Later that year, the Secretary General of the UN declared Venezuela was undergoing a humanitarian emergency with systemic shortages of food, water, sanitation, and clothing. This country is fucked, right?
Yep.
Maduro responded by denying his economy was in recession and brutally oppressing all opposition. He claimed that the US was spreading lies about Venezuela in order to justify an invasion. And this is definitely not what was happening. I've seen leftists in Europe who support Maduro saying these things too when this thing started. They were saying all these things were just the Americans trying to invade the place, right? And I know where that comes from. It comes from understanding history and how it works and what the CIA would in fact do in these situations. But that's not what was happening in Venezuela. Venezuela was genuinely fucked, and Maduro was pretending like it wasn't happening because he was too obsessed with himself. There's no point. We can't lie about it. Like, we have to.
No, but well, I mean, the alternative is what's the problem.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm not saying the Americans should take over. That's not what I'm saying. But that's definitely not what was happening. In 2017, the UN reported that Maduro's forces killed over 5,000 people. Another recall election was proposed but cancelled over what the Electoral Commission claimed was voter fraud. Over 1 million people hit the streets to protest this cancellation of the recall election. Also in 2017, the Supreme Court took over the legislative powers of the National Assembly. While the Assembly delegates are elected, the Supreme Court, as in the US and Ireland, are appointed by the President. And even after more street protests and the advice of the Attorney General, now I can put her back up. She is the Attorney General of Venezuela, and she advised, and the advice, after even more street protests and the advice of the Attorney General, Luisa Ortega Diaz, the court changed their mind and returned power to the National Assembly. The public mood did not change much, as they'd figured, and they figured that the damage had already been done, in that it had been demonstrated and made clear that Maduro was running the country like a dictator, even though he'd been voted in fairly. Right?
Yay.
So the fact that he could do that thing at all was enough to cause trouble. In 2018, Maduro held presidential elections, these elections were rigged, not least because many opposition parties were banned. The EU, the OAS, the Organization of American States, and Australia rejected the results, which showed a 67% victory for Maduro. Fair play to Maduro. He didn't go for like the usual 96% that these guys go for. Some countries accepted the result, however, including Belarus, China, Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Syria, and Turkey. So that's a motley gang of people who accepted the results, right?
Right.
In the day of Maduro's inauguration, the National Assembly advanced their own candidate, Juan Guaido, as the real president. A few days afterwards, the Supreme Court declared the entire National Assembly to be unconstitutional and therefore unfit to declare anyone president. Now, since then, we've been kind of running a dual track where there's kind of two presidents, and in Venezuela, and it's all political, to state the obvious. The U.S.
also played. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, tell me.
No, you're going to tell me. So go ahead.
I was just going to read the rest of it.
Yeah, I think you're going to say exactly what I was going to say. So go ahead.
The U.S. snapped into action and issued a number of sanctions on petroleum, gold, mining, and banking industries in Venezuela, making it more or less impossible for them to do any sort of business internationally. The OAS recognized Guaido's claim, and he swore himself in as president, even though Maduro had been sworn in a few months beforehand. Predictably, while Russia, China, Cuba, Iran, Syria, and Turkey, and so on supported Maduro, most of the Western countries supported Guaido's claim. At a UN meeting to ratify Guaido's claim, China used its veto and pledged to support Maduro's Venezuela any way they could. There is Maduro with, what is it called? Xi Jinping, right?
Yep.
Jinping. Yep, there he is. China is shoring up Venezuela quite a bit and supporting them a lot, which again annoys America. China used its veto and pledged to support Maduro's Venezuela any way they could. Maduro, of course, claimed that everything Guaido was an American-sponsored coup attempt. And this impression was not weakened when Trump hosted Guaido for his 2020 State of the Union address. That's Juan Guaido, the other president of Venezuela. There he is at the actual State of the Union address delivered by Trump. And this isn't doing anything for anybody who supports this guy, Meanwhile, with the sanctions in place, the US organized humanitarian shipments with Brazil and Colombia to Venezuela. Guaido was immediately on board and said, in a few weeks, they will have to choose if they let much-needed aid into the country or if they side with Nicolas Maduro. At the border with Brazil and Colombia, trucks with aid were shot at, burnt out, or stolen by Maduro's forces. Maduro claimed that the aid trucks would be used by the US to justify an invasion. Now, whether or not this is true was separate from the undeniable reality that people in his country were starving and desperately needed what was on those trucks, strings or no strings. Ships from Puerto Rico were turned back by the Venezuelan Navy under threat of shelling. Maduro was not alone in his assessment. The president of Bolivia, Evo Morales, said the shipments were a Trojan horse. You know what he meant by that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Cuba called the aid an attack on the sovereignty of this region. The Western countries, on the other hand, strongly urged Maduro to let the aid into his country. Clearly, those supporting Guaido, especially the US, were expecting an armed insurrection led by Guaido, where he could take over the country decisively, if not illegally, or if not legally. This insurrection did not happen, and it still hasn't happened, by the way, today. Maduro was still in charge of the institutions of Venezuela, and Guaido's support dropped rapidly. Guaido's support has been dropping pretty much ever since then. Like, there's people who will still say he's the president, but no one, I mean, it's hard to take that seriously now. This moved the US focus from internal regime change to external regime change. Or as Trump said in 2020, if we ever did anything with Venezuela, it would be called invasion. I wouldn't send a small little group. No. It would be called an army. Right? So Trump is being very clear about what he means there.
Well, so there was a sort of invasion, about the Jordan Gordeau, or whatever his name was.
Go on.
So he was a right-wing douchebag, and he got a bunch of mercenaries to go do an invasion, but he lied about the funding, and I think only 20 or 30 people actually went, and I think it might have been less than that.
Yeah.
And he, instead of being a part of it, did a live stream or something saying, yes, the invasion has begun, and we're being supported by Donald Trump.
Yeah.
that was in 2020.
There was a number of incidents like that that I didn't talk about.
Yeah, but it's crazy.
Yeah. And basically, they're looking for anything at all that the Americans can grab onto and say we're defending these people. In 2023, Guaido was finally deported from Venezuela and currently lives in Miami, where he holds a position as a visiting professor at Florida International University, where he is described as the former interim president of Venezuela, which is one way of putting it, right?
Yeah. Well, when this happened, Facebook and all these places, Wikipedia, they immediately changed it all.
Yeah.
They changed everything, saying that he was the president. I mean, It was a full-on press to make it happen.
Yep. But it didn't.
Nope.
You can actually email him right now if you want. He's still there. You can email him at jguaido@fiu.edu. jguaido@fiu.edu if you like. Why not? Just ask him how are things. Any news on Venezuela? In 2024, Venezuela had some presidential elections which were blatantly rigged. What am I looking at here? Oh, here we go. Never mind. Sorry. In 2024, Venezuela had some presidential elections which were blatantly rigged and which Maduro won over the unity opposition candidate, Maria Corina Machado. For one thing, the main opposition party was banned. Nevertheless, early polls showed that his opponent was winning the election, a guy called Gonzalez. Naturally, the government declared a victory for Maduro. The OAS, the UN, and others refused to accept it. One commentator said it was one of the most egregious electoral frauds in modern Latin American history, and that's saying something. Yeah. Again, the world split between those accepting that Maduro was still president and those who insisted that his opponent was now the president-elect. Venezuelan people hit the streets again in massive numbers. There were over 1,000 separate protests throughout the country. Everybody wanted to see the votes and have a recount. Maduro, however, refused to share the votes or do a recount. Instead, after a massive, violent crackdown on the protests, the Supreme Court issued an arrest warrant for Gonzalez and Machado on the basis that these protests were funded and encouraged by the US.
Well, they're half right. I mean, that's right, but you still should share the votes. I mean,
one way or another,
Maduro's transparent.
Yeah, one way or another, Maduro's days are numbered. Some have suggested the US offer Maduro amnesty. Senator Rick Scott said, if I was Maduro, I'd head to Russia or China right now. Something's going to happen. In August 2024, the Wall Street Journal reported that the US had offered him amnesty in exchange for conceding the election. This year, Machado won the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, she's tricky fish. She's a tricky fish. She also supports
You're being kind.
She also supports the Israeli genocide in Gaza,
Yep.
and that Trump certainly deserves to win the 2026 award. So the idea of giving her the Nobel Prize, I don't know what they were doing. I mean, if they wanted to champion opposition in Venezuela, there are better ways to do it than that. In the last episode, we saw how Trump has officially ordered covert CIA operations in Venezuela to include lethal operations.
Yeah.
I'm not sure anyone's ever announced that publicly before. Like usually if you're doing secret CIA operations, you find out about it 25 years afterwards.
Right.
But he's announcing it beforehand. Here we all are. Not only that, but Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has announced a military operation called...
Excuse me, it's defense. It's the Department of War now, not defense.
Sorry.
Jeez.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth...
Woke much?
Sorry. Pete Hegseth has announced a military operation called Operation Southern Spear to target narco-terrorists and shield our homeland from the drugs that are killing our people. Now, at this stage, I am indebted to comedian Ryan Rogers, who pointed out that all of Pete Hegseth's operations sound like gay porn movies. And the only reason I know this is because Seamus sent me was it a dollar thing?
No, I can't remember the comedian that I sent.
Oh, well, the guy who originated this thing.
Oh, well, Dave Anthony shared
Dave Anthony shared it.
Yeah.
And then this is how the only reason I found it. The guy who came up with the joke is Ryan Rogers, and he says they sound like gay porn movies. So far we've had Operation Rough Rider for the strikes on Yemen, Operation Midnight Hammer for the strikes on Iran, and now Operation Southern Spear. So Ryan Rogers is 3 for 3.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I mean, brilliant. Anyway, the rationale, broadly speaking, is Maduro is a dictator who does bad things that affect the U.S. interests, particularly oil-based interests, and specifically...
Sometimes does good things too.
That's not part of the rationale.
Okay.
And specifically that Maduro is running a massive drugs racket. Now, first, this is all new stuff. This isn't in the script. This is all new stuff I wrote, Seamus.
Yeah.
First,
Okay.
if Maduro is a dictator, there are other world leaders who are also dictators and who also do bad things that affect U.S. oil-based interests. For instance, the UAE and Saudi Arabia, which are basically slave states. But no one's talking about doing anything with those places.
Nope.
Hang on, sorry.
Yeah, I would say a leader that's doing a genocide kind of outranks all those things.
So would I.
You know, I don't know. Call
While
me
Maduro,
crazy.
while Maduro might be a dictator, and he's certainly done everything I said he did in this episode, there's no evidence that he's had any special dealings with drug cartels, at least not any more or less than any president of Venezuela would have to, just by being president of Venezuela. There will always be reports of drug-related unpleasantness on the border with Colombia, which occasionally spills over into Venezuela. Well, that's a far cry from the criminal cocaine mastermind the U.S.
But they've been specifically saying fentanyl, and fentanyl is not something that's being produced down there either. Okay.
All right, here's what I want to do. I want to show you a document. It's time for another. Let's have a look at Barry's computer, right? This is
Instead of sharing a screen like a normal person.
okay. This is the National Drug Enforcement (NDTA), right? The National Drug Threat Assessment of 2004, done by the DEA. Now, I am going to do something wonderful here. I am going to type in Venezuela. Why are you typing in Venezuela? We'll see. It'll be an adventure for everybody, I promise. How do you spell Venezuela? There we go. Venezuela, and I don't know if you can see that, but it says 0 results.
Awesome.
Right? There is no record of Venezuela at all, of any kind, on the U.S. government's own National Drug Threat Assessment 2024, which is the most up-to-date one we have.
So you're
Right?
saying we should bomb them?
It doesn't matter what I say, does it? I'm just a guy, man. According to the report I just showed you, the biggest problem drugs in the US right now are fentanyl and methamphetamine, which are being manufactured and sold by the Sinaloa and Jalisco Mexican drug cartels using raw materials sourced from China. That is the big drug shit happening in America right now. So if you want to do something and invade Mexico, I don't know.
Socialists there. Come on.
Oh, geez, it might actually happen, is it?
Yeah.
So if it's nothing to do with drugs, and it's not because he's an authoritarian dictator, what conspiracy theory can we nail together to explain U.S. aggression against Venezuela?
Oil!
Well, maybe we should trust Trump when he said in 2023 he wanted to invade, and why. He said Venezuela was about to collapse. We would have taken over, and we would have kept all that oil. I mean, he said it. When announcing Operation Southern Spear, Hegseth, the reason I said it like that is people will tell you that's a conspiracy theory, but he said it directly.
Yeah. I fucking hate the guy, but he's the gift that keeps on giving when it comes to that, saying the quiet part out loud. So.
Yeah. When announcing Operation Southern Spear, Hegseth also said, the Western Hemisphere is America's neighborhood and we will protect it. This is some classic old school Monroe Doctrine type shit. Nevertheless, the US has been circling the carcass of, or I guess the Caracas, of Venezuela for some time. No one is entirely sure if Hegseth is just giving the extant US military operations pointed at Venezuela an official name, or if something new is going to happen. Regardless, the US is massing warships. The world's largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, is headed down there. Its flight deck covers 5 acres and it can carry up to 75 aircraft.
Flight deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Ford and its escorts bring fighter jets, transport and early warning aircraft, helicopters, missiles, jamming and spying tools, as well as thousands of troops. Other warships in the area include the USS Iwo Jima, USS Fort Lauderdale, USS San Antonio, the guided missile cruiser USS Lake Erie, and the littoral in this case means on the coast, littoral combat ship USS Minneapolis St. Paul. Most of them have Tomahawk missiles, and right now fighter jets are constantly flying low over Caracas. We can't predict the future, but it sure is looking very invasion-y over there right now. Now, that is proven reserves and millions of barrels. You can see there why Venezuela is going to be of more interest. It completely outstrips every other country for proven reserves. The place is going to be a powerhouse of oil production whenever they get their shit together. And they have 800 years of production left, which is just ridiculous.
That's why we have to have it.
Yeah, so that's the saddest image in history. That's the saddest image for the Venezuelan.
And in all honesty, we would be the worst country to have it because of how much we use. We use more than anybody.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're worried, if you're environmentalist, this is like Armageddon level, like just insanity.
Yeah.
Good times. Good stuff, Barry. Good stuff.
Yeah, that's my episode. Now, by the time this goes out, they might already have done an invasion, but already we're
hopefully not.
I try to make the episodes, but Venezuela right now is an active hot zone, and it could be an invasion by the time this goes out. I certainly hope not. I hope they find some way of solving that doesn't involve killing people.
Well, we got the Epstein files, so who knows what.
We have the public archive of Epstein files that are searchable. Yeah. Good.
So.
Dershowitz, brilliant. Anyway, that's it, is it? What's happening? What's happening now? It's time for what's new. Right. Every podcast, before the podcast, myself and Seamus look up little stories to do with the CIA and the FBI that we get from putting CIA and FBI into Google and hitting the news tab. And we have not told each other about these stories, so we are finding out from each other what we have done, what madness we have wrought. First time. Just like you, Seamus, tell me something about the FBI that happened this week.
The FBI wants to add fiber optic drones to its arsenal with AI recognition.
Oh, God.
So it's the same kind of drones that are being used in the Iraq War and also in Gaza.
Oh, God. I don't like that.
Yep, so they're going to use that against, civilians and protesters and
no, thank you.
Alleged illegal migrants. I don't know what the proper term is anymore because it's all gross. The FBI spied on... Sorry?
Undocumented folks.
That's probably the best. The FBI spied on a signal group of immigrants, immigration activists. Was this going to let me scroll up to it or not? All these sites have been dodgy anymore. Joint information report said that the FBI... They claim that these folks are anarchist, violent, extreme actors. Basically, this group is like a watchdog group on ice, and it's to help people that are trying to, combat the nonsense that's going on with it. And the FBI's hacked into their Signal, which, if you don't know, Signal is a app that you can use to send.
Oh, like Telegram?
Encrypted, yeah. Although Telegram has been compromised from what I've heard for a while ago, yeah. So next we have which we might have touched on. Okay, not on this one. So the shooting of Butler against the assassination attempt against Trump. Basically now Kash Patel and Bondi are both saying that that he acted alone. They have no other information. But a bunch of right-wing folks are coming out and saying that they don't believe him. It's a cover-up. You're lying. I don't know about that. I mean...
Do you think it was a lone guy?
What's that?
Do you think it was a lone weirdo?
I haven't seen anything to make me think otherwise. And and people on the left see this, keep saying this too, that it was, a staged, a false
I'd believe
flag
it if
and
I
all
saw
that.
some evidence.
Yeah, but I mean, a fucking guy got killed.
Hmm.
A random civilian got killed behind Trump, who took bullets. To me, that's enough. Plus, the guy that supposedly did it got kicked out of his marksman school. I mean, a lot of this stuff kind of adds up to, he probably just acted alone, was a fucking idiot. And, the police and the secret service fucked up that day.
Yeah.
That makes more sense to me, but whatever.
Me too, yeah.
So then, I think we might have talked about this last time. Patel's getting heat because he's assigned a FBI SWAT team to protect his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's starting to get some heat for that, which is justified.
Is this the Mossad girl?
Yep.
Okay.
The alleged Mossad girl.
Sorry, alleged.
Yeah. So then now Haiti's pissed at the FBI. The FBI began interviewing Colombian suspects detained in Haiti for their alleged role in the 2021 assassination of President Joel Moise, reportedly without notifying the Court of Appeals. So there's a lot of wondering why they went in there. Was this actually a straight up interview thing, or was it some quid pro quo stuff? Don't know.
Let us remember that going into Haiti is not easy.
Yeah.
Because there's no government, there's no anything. So you don't just kind of land in and go where you like.
Right.
Yeah.
Veteran FBI employee sues Bureau for being fired over displaying a pride flag.
Pride? The gay thing?
Yep. How dare you?
Come on, guys.
Yep. I mean, are you really surprised with these fuckers, though?
Be better.
I think, that's it. Because this is just another one of the same one. Sometimes I put up more than one source just in case they crash on me.
I do that too, yeah.
But that's what I got this week. I mean, we could actually do a whole what's new on ICE and department. Oh, actually, I don't know. Did you see about the Department of Homeland Security and all that with Twitter?
No.
So apparently there's a feature that they allow to happen on Twitter, aka X, where you can look at when an account was joined, where it was located when it was joined.
I did see that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't see about the Department of Homeland Security. I saw it with other people.
It says it's Israel.
Oh.
Yep. It was formed in Israel and being run by someplace in Tel Aviv.
Oh, fuck my ass.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and then they tried to lie or try to blow cover and say this isn't real, but somebody actually videotaped doing it, just like you did with that now, and showed that that's exactly what it came up as. So,
oh my God.
The feature is no longer on X or Twitter, so.
Yeah.
But there, I think a lot of right-wing pundits have been outed as their accounts are being controlled by overseas.
Yeah.
People, so, good times.
Yeah.
So, yep, that's what I got.
It's a grim business.
Yeah.
Will we talk about the CIA?
Go for it.
BBC.com reports that a Chinese firm bought an insurer for CIA agents.
Okay.
In 2016,
Why
a veteran
not?
journalist covering the U.S. intelligence community got a tip-off. A small insurance company that specialized in selling liability insurance to FBI and CIA agents had been sold to a Chinese company. This means that the Chinese company now has access to a lot of very sensitive personal details of a bunch of FBI and CIA agents.
Oopsies.
Genius.
That's hilarious.
If you want to insure, you have to ask some really personal questions if you want liability insurance. Brilliant. Next, The Guardian reports that documents reveal Gerald Ford's effort to block report on CIA and assassination plots.
Oh.
Documents dating from 1975 were posted on Thursday by the National Security Archive, an independent research group, to highlight the report's significance and conjecture that Donald Trump may have authorized the agency to assassinate Nicolas Maduro.
There you go.
Among the documents posted by the NSA is a secret sensitive options paper addressed to Dick Cheney, then Chief of Staff to Ford, that included a recommendation of outright opposition to publication of the Church Report. The Church Committee, if you remember.
Oh, yeah. Good times.
Thankfully, they were published. But if they weren't, my podcast would have a lot less information in them.
Yeah.
The Irish Times reports that the Israeli military operations were well over the top, according to an ex-CIA chief. John Brennan said he very much admires the Irish government's position on Gaza, but is disappointed by the positions taken by the Trump administration. He said the US provides most of the military capabilities to Israel. He believed it was obliged and should have done everything possible to prevent the Israel carrying out what were too aggressive military operations. He said the whole thing in Gaza was well over the top, which I agree with you, as it was. And that is it.
Awesome.
That is our show. And hopefully now you will be a little bit more comfortable in reading the news about Venezuela, and you'll say, yes, okay, now I know what's going on there and why it's going on and other things that happened.
Oil.
Oil, yeah, but you can't say that to some people. They don't like it.
Yeah.
So you'll have to say oil, footnote.
Watch this hour-long video, or these
exactly.
two-parters.
These two guys, there's an American guy and an Irish guy. No, they're great. No, I mean, they swear. No, they're okay. They're fine. And they have this bit at the start where they say, like, weird shit. But don't worry about that. The actual content is... You know what? Forget about it. Don't watch them. You won't understand. It's not for you. Not everything has to be about you. Okay?
No.
All right. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks. We'll probably do FBI, but we'll see. Bye, guys.